Shalom, this is your brother Thon. All right, first and foremost, I want to give all praises to the Most High, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakah HaKwadash. I want to give double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. I want to say shalom to all the brothers and, of course, the few sisters who are pursuing this truth and sincerity. All right, may the blessing of election be upon your house. Now, this is a response to IUIC in their latest plight, and this is a tasteless tactic they always use when it gets too hot in the kitchen. Now, they have a disagreement with us on the law in Deuteronomy 22. They teach it the same. When you go read it, they'll teach it the same. But the discrepancy lies when we dive into what the age of marriage is in the scriptures. They teach that it's 20 years old is the age of marriage. Now, for a man, that is the age of marriage, right? 20 years old is when a man was able to go to war, when he, particular rights were bestowed upon him during our forefathers' time. But it was not the same for the woman. They're taking the parameters set for the men of Israel and saying they're the same in every regard for the women, which clearly isn't true. Just a simple example for you guys. It's permitted unto men to teach and prophesy. Is that permitted unto the women? No, they could be a prophetess, which they're endowed with to get the song or dreams, but not to go out and teach on the highways and byways like a man. The parameters are not the same. For a woman, it mentions, and we'll get it in 1 Corinthians, it mentions the flower of her age. Now we're going to go into what that means. And as we go through this lesson, remember, we always say this. You can't digest this ancient way, this ancient book, the ancient customs that our forefathers lived by, that the Lord gave them, and overlay it with this modern mindset. You're going to go through culture shock. There are going to be some dark sayings to you because you grew up in this society. Now, are we advocating for everything right now to be done the ancient way today? No, there's certain things that you can't keep in the law. There's certain things that will be unwise to try to keep here. There's certain things that if a brother was keeping, we couldn't even be around that brother. We'd be like, hey, bro, you're not breaking the Lord's law technically, but you're not using wisdom, so you're going to have to do your own thing. That's just what it is. And they know that. But they want to spin the narrative because they're cut in a lot of the things they teach, like the name, like the chip, like having sex on the Sabbath, like hell, right? There's so many holes that we say, hey, you're going off on this. This is what it says. That they revert to this slander tactic. This is all they bring up whenever they're rebuked. They never actually address and thoroughly go through, the misinterpretation of the prophecies, the misinterpretation of the name, the misinterpretation of what happens when you die. They revert back to this tasteless tactic. And a lot of their congregation is beginning to see through it. They're like, oh, they always do this whenever questions come up. Whenever we have questions about something, instead of, actually thoroughly going through it and explaining the rebuttals that the apostles and the brothers on down the Great Millstone will bring up, they revert back to this to try to, G-check everybody in their congregation and getting back in line. And it's all really for the women, right? That thing is a money-making machine. And there's nothing wrong with making a little bit of money, but the doctrine, the standard, should never be compromised to make people feel comfortable. So we go to 1 Corinthians 7 and 36. We'll read it in the KJV, then the NLT, all right? And then we'll get into what the term means, okay? It's 1 Corinthians 7 and 36. It reads, but if any man think that he behaveth himself uncomely towards his virgin, if she pass the flower of her age, and need so require, let him do what he will. He sinneth not. Let them marry. Now we're going to read it in the NLT here on the right, in the blue letter. It says, but if a man thinks that he's treating his fiancée improperly, and will inevitably give into his passion, let him marry her as he wishes, it is not a sin. So what does the flowers of her age mean? Well, simply it means when she's able to now bear children. So when she starts to menstruate. No, bro, it's the prime of her life. No, it's not talking about the prime of her life. Well, she's 25 or no, it's saying when she's able to fulfill a woman's purpose, which is to bring life in the earth. Now, the word there for the flower of her age is huperakamos, and it says beyond the bloom of prime of life, overripe and plump, and so in greater danger of defilement of a virgin. So the question is, when does a woman bloom? Again, when she menstruates, when she's able to bear children. Now I want to go to Leviticus, the 15th chapter, because it mentions the term flowers again. Okay, so let's get there. Leviticus 15. I'm going to start at 19. I'm going to read 19 in the NLT. And we're going to read in the NLT till we get down to the term flowers in the KJV. So it's going to mention flowers in the KJV in verse 24. And it'll kind of dawn on you what the flowers of her age actually is. Okay? Now, Leviticus 15:19, the NLT, it says, whenever a woman has her menstrual period, she will be ceremonially unclean for 7 days. Anyone who touches her during that time will be unclean until evening. Anything on which the woman lies or sits during the time of her period will be unclean. If any of you touch her bed, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. And this is one of those laws that you can't even keep. It's women all over the world and everywhere, sitting on stuff, touch stuff. You don't know, so that we have sins that we don't even know that we're committing throughout the day. Verse 22 in NLT. If you touch any object she has sat on, you must wash your clothes and bathe yourself in water, and you will remain unclean until evening. This includes her bed or any other objects she has sat on. You will be unclean until the evening if you touch. Verse 24. The point here in the NLT. If a man has sexual intercourse with her and her blood touches him, her menstrual impurity will be transmitted to him. He will remain unclean for 7 days, and any bed on which he lies will be unclean. Now let's jump over to the KJV, Leviticus 15:24. In the King James, it says, and if any man lie with her, and her flowers be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon he lieth shall be unclean. And when you look up that word flowers there in verse 24, it goes into her menstrual period. All right. So when we go in the New Testament, in the Greek, it's a different language, right? Hebrew and Greek. It mentions flowers again because it was understood it was talking about what? When she starts to menstruate. And when she started to menstruate, she then became eligible for marriage. The parameters for which a woman can get married and a man is two different things. A lot of young men, they would have to do an apprenticeship under another Israelite man, learn a trade, accumulate some substance and wealth before he was even ready, to start a family. So men would get married later than women. It was just common in not just our culture, all cultures, right? That was the ancient way. Is it that way now? No. Did we grow up seeing that in any way? No. So it's going to be foreign to us. And again, we're not saying, hey, brothers, you need to go deal with a girl when she first started. No, of course not. When we go into the law, our elders simply mentioned this is when women would get married during that time. When he was going into the example of the law, and then this is what was going on back then, he was simply elaborating on this is how you would deal. This is how you would deal with this instance when it happened. What we're talking about is Deuteronomy 22. If a woman was, raped, so to speak, you would have to deal with it according to what the law has given us. It doesn't change because she was, younger than 20. You still have to deal according to the law. That's all we're saying. But they're going to continue to use that tasteless tactic to sway the minds of their congregation and others. But, it has to be done. It's a rite of passage for us. We're going to be slandered. We're going to be called, shitty people. It is what it is. But for those who are sincere and the Lord has opened your eyes to see and ears to hear, you'll understand that, they're just resulting to shame, insults, guilt, and the need to be right. As in Kevin Samuels used to say before he passed, right? That's what they result to because they're in the wrong. So they're trying to do a little bit of sleight of hand to take people's attention away from the holes in their doctrine because we point them out. So their response is to slander us. And that's all it is. But I do want to go show you the precept they use to justify, it's 20 years old is the age of marriage. They're using the contingency for the young men. Let me see here. So let's go to 2 Chronicles 25 and verse 5. We'll get right to the point. It says, moreover, Amaziah gathered Judah together and made them captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all of Judah and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above. And found, now this is the men. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men able to go forth to war. So 20 years old was the age, the threshold in which a man was even eligible to be in the military. All right. Able to go forth to war that could handle spear and shield. And now what they would do, they'll precept that with Tobit 1 and 9. It says, furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man. So this is talking about men, not the women. There's different parameters. Furthermore, when I was come to the age of a man, I married Anna of my own kindred, and of her I begat Tobias. So, that's how they spin it. Now you got to keep in mind, that means Joseph could have been 20 up, and Mary would have been anywhere from 12 to 17. That's around the ages that women get their periods, right? So it could have been on the lower end of that threshold or the higher end. It doesn't necessarily say, but it doesn't change the practices back then. And a lot of times a woman would be betrothed to a man. All right, they would be engaged, and he wouldn't deal with her until he felt that she was mature enough. But to try to spin it and make it palatable to the world, that's showing that you're ashamed of the fullness of the gospel. And here at Great Millstone, that's something that we're not ashamed of. There are going to be things that are not palatable to people with a modern mindset. It just is what it is. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we're advocating for men to go sleep with girls that just got their periods. That's just a complete lie, and it's nonsense, and it's slander. And it's a misdirection tactic for those who have holes in their doctrine. So, with that being said, I want to give all praises once more to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rekah HaKodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. And I want to say shalom to all the brothers and, of course, the few sisters who are pursuing this truth in sincerity. All right, may the blessing of election be upon your house. Shalom.